Hey there, YouTube. Madwitch here. Uh, my last altar talk, I talked about the actual altar. I mean, it's called altar talk, and all I've been doing is talking, but not about the altar. Um, so I covered that last week, or I should actually say a few hours ago. A little late on my videos. I had some responsibilities to do, so I'm a little late. So I'm trying to catch up while I can. Um, So there's periods of time where I'm not around. Don't worry, I'm just taking care of my responsibilities as a father and as a citizen of the United States. Um, but right now, I want to talk about uh, circle etiquette or ritual etiquette, or just plain good witchy etiquette. Uh, so a lot of people might not agree with me on this, but this is just how if I were to be in a group, and there have been times where I was in a group, and if I were to ever be in a group again or to start running a group, I would want these etiquettes to be put in place or already in place. Um, so when I was practicing with a group of people, I noticed that it was lighthearted. Everybody thinks that uh, rituals are supposed to be serious, and uh, learning circles are supposed to be serious 100% of the time. There's no room for laughter or no room for fun, and that's just complete and total falsehood to me personally. There was learning lessons that I was in, and these were with people who were 20, 30 years into their practices, and there was a lot of like joking. There was, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there was joking around and some lighthearted laughter and everything, and that's perfectly well and okay to laugh when it's called for, and a lot of people don't get that. So if you're one of those serious types of people, you're just cutting out the fun in learning, and that's one of the reasons why I liked a lot of the groups I was in, is because of the lightheartedness and because of the laughter and the jokes. Uh, and besides, as humans, it is our nature to joke around and poke fun and whatever. As long as you're not being malicious, a little lighthearted joking is very well and okay. Um, Especially in rituals, it actually does bring some positive energy into it. So don't think that it's always just going to be doom and gloom and all seriousness. There are it's just like in life, just outside of the circle, your everyday life. There's a time to joke around, and there's a time to get down to the nitty gritty and be serious. You know, uh, so yeah, don't not so serious. Um, you don't if you're doing a ritual or a circle inside of another person's home, which means that they are hosting it. Now, there are rules for the host and there are rules for the participants. The host, you know, as a host, you should already have, you know, uh, snacks and drinks to go around, to everyone equally. And to the participants, things aren't cheap. If you're a participant at somebody else's home, one, respect their home. Don't just start rummaging through their stuff. Don't, you know, be respectful. If they have a no shoes policy, take your shoes off. If you have stinky feet, make sure you don't have stinky feet. Um, just, and good hygiene is always a plus, always a must. You don't want to, be like, and if you can smell yourself, trust me, other people can smell you too. So good hygiene, get rid of all the stinkies. It's just one, it's just healthy to be, bathed, and two, other people's noses will thank you. Um, you know, Also with respecting person's place and uh, getting rid of the stinkies. If you gotta pass gas, excuse yourself. Go someplace else and pass gas, preferably the bathroom. If you're going to be taking a crap in somebody's house, make sure there's no leftover crap. Actually, if you're using the bathroom, period, don't piss all over the walls, don't shit all over the floors, and if you end up clogging the toilet, unclog it. It's just common courtesy. And also, if you are, if it's like a big party, or I shouldn't say a big party, but if it's a party or if it's a large celebration, bring a potluck. Just just something to munch on. If it's just a small circle, you know, or some sort of like craft project or something, because I do know that there are a lot of groups do crafts. You know, so I mean, if I was running a group, I would definitely like to do some crafts. You know, it, anything from making bridge dolls to stuff like this. It's all but this stuff isn't cheap. So if someone else is, if you're going to be doing crafts, but somebody else paid for the materials, give a little bit back. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just be like, hey, here's a little bit of money to cover some of the costs for the crafts, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. It doesn't have to be much. If the total craft project would have cost $5, give them $5. If it's like $20, give them like 10. Just give them something back, something. As for dress code, and I'm not talking about skyclad groups. If you're in a skyclad group, don't pay attention to this next part because it doesn't apply to you. But dress code, there are uh, some groups do have a dress code. Personally, me, I say as long as you're comfortable and as long as it's appropriate, then wear it. Me, I perform my rituals in my pajamas. I don't have a set ritual guard. Some groups do have a set ritual garb. You'll have to have a certain type of dress. Whether it's some sort of robe or just a specific color of clothing that you have to wear during a certain time, or depending on what ritual you guys are doing, you gotta wear. There will be dress codes, but as long as it's appropriate, as long as you're not showing a little too much skin, or if and make sure it's comfortable. You always want to wear something that is comfortable. Uh, so keep that in mind. I basically like just lounge around stuff. Obviously, if you were to come to my house and perform circle or learning circle or ritual, I'm going to be wearing more than just my pajamas. So this is, I mean, I'm a solitary practitioner, so I just wear whatever the fuck I want, and it's normally just Batman t-shirt. Um, for like altar space, if you're at somebody else's house and their altar is in the open, there are going to be people who have their altar in the open. There are going to be people like me who have the altar in a separate room completely. Uh, but if don't just go up and grab something. Don't just go up and like, oh, this is really cool. Oh. Don't do that. One of my buddies, he is not religious at all. Uh, He's agnostic. He's not religious at all. I told him, I told him what I was doing and everything, and I said, hey, my altar's set up if you want to come over and check it out. A couple days later, he comes over. Normally we just play Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or some shit. And I said, well, hey, you want to see my altar? I offered to show him the altar. He's like, yeah, sure. So he comes in. He's looking. He's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And I'm like, thanks, man. And he's like, he sees my athame. He's like, hey, can I see your knife? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He asks. He's like, hey, can I see your knife? Yeah, sure, go ahead. I have no problem with people, touching my stuff or looking at my stuff, so long as they ask. I mean, it's just common courtesy and respect. And then it goes the same with the Book of Shadows. More specifically, the personal Book of Shadows. Now, in group settings, you will have basically two books of shadows at your disposal. Your own personal book of shadows, which is which is basically what you personally need, your knowledge. And then there's the group book of shadows, or the Coven's Book of Shadows. This is open to all members of the group, and it's normally really freaking huge. The last time I seen the group's Book of Shadow, it was this thick, and it was like bulging, like it was laying flat. Like the cover was like this, like it was bulging. So it can get pretty big, and it's normally the collective knowledge of all the members. Because sometimes when a new member comes in, they have knowledge that's not in that book. They'll be like, hey, you're missing something. And sometimes even you know, um, me personally, I like to have separate books. I like to have my grimoire, which is my spell book, and then my Book of Shadows, which is just basic general knowledge. So, there's, some group books of shadows are both the Book of Shadows and the grimoire. But when it comes to the personal Book of Shadows, don't just grab somebody's Book of Shadows and start leafing through it. That is extremely disrespectful because that is their personal knowledge. So both, I mean, when you have your own altar in your personal Book of Shadows, you pour your energy into consecrating those items and to making those items and to writing into those items, that it's extremely, extremely personal to you. I mean, that's like your car or your house. It's extreme. That's your underwear drawer. You don't want people going through your underwear drawer. So don't start grabbing shit off the altar or reading stuff off their book. Um, Another thing is, I've seen this happen with groups before. They would have a jar, and um, the whole group would put in a dollar or two, whatever, during their circles or during their rituals or whatever. Just as they come in or just before they leave, they would put a dollar or two or some spare change and set up a jar, and then they would use the money in that jar to throw uh, a big Sabbath party. I mean, so that in and of itself would be a good idea for a lot of group covens. One, it basically says that we're all interested in this. We're all going to be doing it. I actually know one group that actually went to Four Quarters out in, I want to say Pennsylvania. Yeah, Four Quarters out in Pennsylvania. And that's how they did it, is they got, they all pulled in money throughout a whole entire year into this big freaking jar, and then by the time the year ended, they had enough for all five of them to go, and they all went, and they all had a great time, So everybody pitched in. They got car rentals, plane tickets, um, uh, camping grounds right there uh, on site and everything. They were able to pay for all the food, all thanks to them putting in all this money, and it wasn't cheap. So if you are in a group, think about think about putting in a little bit of money towards the group. You know, also for group people, I would also suggest making a group altar. Um, Try to make it something, small. Everybody has a little something they put into it. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but try to make it mobile. Unless if you're going to be having rituals specifically at one person's house, like if a person has a lot of land. If you got a lot of land and land to spare, you know, uh, think about making a permanent ritual spot on your land someplace, and don't be afraid to have your coven members pay for some of it. If if you have 20 feet of 20 square feet of land that you wouldn't mind donating to the group itself, you know, have them pitch in some either some blood, sweat, and tears and hard work, or some cash to get the materials to make it. So just remember, it's all about respect. Um, Also for uh, group rituals during cakes and ale, if you are drinking alcohol during your cakes and ale, don't get drunk. That is not the purpose of cakes and ale. You get drunk during the parties. You don't get drunk after rituals. Um, for younger groups, I would hope that you're not using alcohol. There are great substitutions such as soda, juice, milk, water, tea. You know, if you do have, if you're an older group and you do have people who are under the legal drinking age, you know, just make it fair for everyone. If the 19-year-old or the 20-year-old has to drink juice, so do you. All right, I don't care if you're 50. If they're drinking juice, you're drinking juice. As for the cakes, cakes can be anything from uh, cookies, biscuits, cupcakes, brownies, crescent rolls. Whatever it is. A handful of chips. It really doesn't matter so long as it's cakes and ale. You know, make sure everybody gets an even portion. You know, don't and if you are partaking in the cakes and ale, don't grab more than your share. Uh, Cakes and ale that the group that I was in did was basically a fresh baked loaf of some sort of bread. We actually we actually had a lot of cinnamon raisin bread, which was freaking delicious, and that was spread between 13 people. I mean, 13 people. And it was a loaf about this big. And you know, you take it. The high priest or high priestess, whoever was acting that week or that month, would take a piece of the bread and then hand it to the next person, and then they take a piece of the bread. Don't rip off like half the loaf of bread and then pass it on, and then you got this big chunk of bread. Just rip, pinch, rip. You know, get a nice little bite out of it, but don't take the majority of it, because you got to worry about all the other people as well. And if you don't want to do it that way, I prefer the break bread way. uh, it's more of a camaraderie thing. I really like that. I really enjoy that. But if you're not into that, then pre-slice the bread if it's fresh baked, or if you bake it yourself. Obviously, you probably want to cut it. Like, if you bake your own banana bread, slice it up into nice even portions and then dish it out that way. So uh, but yeah, that's pretty much about it. And as for the joking around and stuff, keep it to a minimum. You don't want it to be one big long joke fest. Because things do need to get done. Like I said, there is a time to be serious and there's a time to joke around. funny things will happen. You know, dirty minds will activate. You know, I mean, that's just how it is. If if you're pagan, you love life. And if you love life, you're going to have fun. As always, blessed be.